Good morning, everyone. Your morning weather briefing for this Friday, May 11th, shows that there are no major changes in the forecast. For the Corn Belt, active wet pattern for the Corn Belt for the next 2 weeks. Very difficult to find long periods in that time frame when some rain will not be falling somewhere in the region. Are looking at quite a temperature contrast in the region for a couple more days. Big heat in the south and quite chilly conditions in the north. Then warm throughout the region for Monday to Wednesday. It's not a wet forecast for the mid-south, and that is especially the case through early next week when largely no rain is going to be falling. Starting to see some better rainfall chances developing by Sunday in the hard red winter wheat belt, and that will be the beginning point of a more active weather pattern for that area. Still plenty of heat in that forecast for a lot of the area for several more days. 90s for highs or even a few hundreds in a few spots for today and tomorrow. It's not a wet forecast for the northern plains for at least the next week, but some increase in rainfall after that. Temperature and rainfall forecasts this morning want to note that in the near term we are still looking at plenty of heat in the southern plains, southern corn belt, and northern portions of the mid-south. That'll be especially for today through Tuesday or Wednesday. Extensive areas of 85 to 95 degree highs and even locally warmer than that throughout that area. We'll also want to mention that the 11 to 15 day forecast has trended warmer today. Still looking at a temperature contrast for late in the 6 to 10 day period and into the early 11 to 15 day time frame, and then warmth will encompass a bigger portion of the nation for late in the 11 to 15 day period. 6 to 10 day rainfall forecast is a little bit more confusing this morning with the European and European ensemble backing off somewhat on their rainfall forecast for the 6 to 10 day period, and you can see that my rainfall forecast is also backed off a little bit. A model agreement though returns to very good on above normal rainfall in a big area for the 11 to 15 day time frame. QPF discussion this morning, no major disagreements with what is shown. If I were to have drawn this map, maybe I would have gone for a little bit less rainfall over a little smaller area in the hard red winter wheat belt, but again, I can see a scenario where this forecast can verify, so I'm not going to be having any big disagreements. Extensive rainfall across the central and northern corn belt for the next 5 days, while limited rains are seen across the northern plains and across the mid-south. For the day 6 to 7 day time frame, the European model is going to be the model that is most heavily weighted for this forecast. The GFS model would have better rains across more of the corn belt. I like what this model is showing though, with a general southeastward shift in the rainfall in this time frame, which would start to bring some rainfall into the southern corn belt, maybe a little bit of rain into the mid-south, and continued rainfall chances at that time for the hard red winter wheat belt. Temperatures yesterday, first of our 3 day period of a big temperature contrast in the region. You can find that temperatures in the 40s, 50s, and even isolated 30s in the northern plains and far northwestern corn belt represented temperatures 10 to as much as 20 degrees below normal, while not far to the south of there. Lots of 80s and even 90s to the south indicated temperatures 10 to 20 degrees above normal. So again, the first of our 3 day period of an extensive temperature contrast across the middle of the country. 18-hour rainfall totals. Best rains have been in the central plains through the northwestern corn belt, where there have been several places with more than a half inch. Radar estimated rainfall verifying that as well. Iowa-Minnesota border area into southeastern South Dakota and a good portion of central and western Nebraska seeing rainfall amounts through since 7 o'clock on Thursday of more than a half inch and locally more than an inch, and the radar this morning is still showing an extensive area of shower and thunderstorm activity in the central plains through a good portion of the northwestern corn belt. As far as the forecast is concerned, again, an active and wet period of weather coming up for the next 10 days to 2 weeks across a big portion of the corn belt and into a big portion of the hard red winter wheat belt. This is looking at the 500 millibar height anomaly chart by Sunday morning. You can still see at that time that we have a major trough of low pressure in western portions of the nation. Various disturbances breaking off from that trough, moving east-northeast will keep rainfall chances at that time and in for several days beyond that for the hard red winter wheat belt and also into the corn belt. Eventually that trough will weaken and move eastward, but it will be quickly followed by yet another trough of low pressure. This is towards late in the 6 to 10 day time frame for 7 o'clock in the morning on May 19th, and you can see that a fresh trough of low pressure has been replacing our first trough by that time, and again that system as well bringing disturbances to the east and northeast, keeping rainfall chances into the hard red winter wheat belt and the corn belt as we head towards later in the 6 to 10 day period and into a good part of the 11 to 15 day time frame. With that lengthy of a period of rainfall chances, we are still looking at an extensive area of heavy rainfall across a good portion of the middle of the country over the next 2 weeks. Notice that a big portion of the corn belt looking at 2 to 4 inch rainfall amounts during that time frame. Again, as I mentioned yesterday, it's not a situation where everyone in the corn belt is going to be seeing 2 to 4 inch rains. Just by circumstances or by bad luck, some places will get shortchanged. But again, the bottom line, it is a very active wet weather pattern. Everyone has a chance for 2 to 4 inch rains. Would not be surprising at all to see some localized areas seeing even more than that. And you can see the GFS operational model is indeed indicating some areas of the Corn Belt seeing even more than 4 inches of rainfall during the next 2 weeks. For the hard red winter wheat belt, again, rainfall chances increasing there on Sunday, and an active wet pattern continuing beyond that. Should be a situation where we eventually see some decent to significant totals across a good portion of the hard red winter wheat belt for the next 2 weeks. Temperature-wise, as I mentioned, yesterday was the start of a 3-day period of a very big temperature contrast across the middle of the country. This is the European model's high temperature forecast for both today on the left and tomorrow on the right. Again, notice extensive area of 40-degree high temperatures today in Wisconsin and nearby areas, while not far to the south. 80s, 90s, even a few 100s. Those 80s and 90s extending as far north as extreme southern Iowa and into central portions of Illinois. The temperature contrast not as severe tomorrow, but still a lot of 50s and 60s across northern portions of the Corn Belt, while not far to the south. Once again, 80s and 90s across extreme southern Iowa, central Illinois, and points south and southwest from there. The heat is going to be continuing into southern portions of the Corn Belt for several days beyond that. This is a look at the European model's temperature forecast by Monday. By that time, the temperature contrast is largely diminished. We are seeing highs in the 70s to near 80 by that time, even in central and northern portions of the Corn Belt. But note that temperatures have not cooled off at all in that time frame for the Mid-South, southern Corn Belt, and into the southern plains. Still extensive 85 to 95 degree highs in that area on Monday. That'll continue for another day, even on Tuesday, before we do see 90-plus degree temperatures backing off in the southern Corn Belt and plain states as we get towards Tuesday, Wednesday, and even very late next week we may see the temperatures in the 90s back off somewhat in the Mid-South as some rainfall chances there start to increase. I have been talking about a rainfall or a temperature contrast enhancing rainfall chances for late in the 6 to 10 day period and into the 11 to 15 day time frame. That is still indicated on today's models to show the a lot of cool weather into the plain states and into the far northwestern Corn Belt and northern plains as we get towards the end of the 10-day period, which is shown by these maps. As I indicated, though, at the beginning of the presentation this morning, the models have trended warmer for very late in the 11 to 15 day period. You can see that all the models now by day 14 showing an extensive area of above normal temperatures across a big portion of the nation. So some temperature contrast near term, some warming for early next week, then a temperature contrast for late in the 6 to 10 day period and into the 11 to 15 day time frame, but models have trended warmer today for very late in the 11 to 15 day period. Internationally, still a normal to below normal rainfall pattern for Safrinha corn areas of Brazil. Your driest areas still looking to be eastern Mato Grosso, Goiás, Bahia, and into Minas Gerais. Under a half-inch of rainfall some places there, nothing at all for the next 2 weeks. Still can see, though, some better rains to the south of there across Mato Grosso do Sul and into Paraná. The bulk of that rainfall for those areas coming about a week from today into the Friday, Saturday time frame of next week. You can also notice that the weather pattern is now changed and a much drier weather pattern is now beginning for Argentine growing areas. Over in Europe and the former Soviet Union, this is looking at the European ensemble 2-week rainfall forecast for those areas, and you can see that it is looking to be a good deal wetter in those areas for the next 2 weeks. No one one real big rain system is going to be bringing them all of that rainfall. But over the course of the next 2 weeks, various rainfall chances for both Europe and the former Soviet Union will be giving both of those areas near to above normal rainfall in that time frame. I want to mention Canada this morning. The Canadian Prairie is looking at a fairly dry weather pattern for the next week, and it is a situation where especially Manitoba could really use some rainfall right now. It is quite dry in the wheat areas of Manitoba, but for all of the Canadian prairies, a decidedly dry weather pattern there for at least the next week. Some increase in rainfall for week 2, but even then, rainfall amounts will not be exceptionally heavy. In Australia, what I'm showing there on the right is 2-day rainfall totals for the winter wheat areas of Australia. You can see that there have been some fairly decent rainfall in far southeastern portions of the growing area, especially in eastern portions of Victoria. There will be a little bit more rainfall today in eastern Victoria and into some of the southern winter wheat areas of New South Wales. But other than that, this is a decidedly dry weather pattern for all Australian wheat areas for the next 2 weeks. Big part of that area probably seeing nothing at all in that time frame. That's what I have for this morning. Everyone have themselves a great day and an even greater weekend.